thank you so much for coming here. I really appreciate all your support, and it's wonderful to see your faces in the audience. So today I'll be talking about user experience design, and I know some of you may not know what this is. So just to clarify, it is also referred to as UX design, and it is the process of creating designs based on research and evidence. So it's really not about aesthetics or what someone thinks might work. It's really about asking the user and learning from them about what will work for them. So I'm sure you're also wondering, what am I doing here? There's no one else on campus and I'm still presenting and carrying a backpack. So essentially, I'm pursuing a career in user experience design, and I created an independent study with the help of my advisor, Professor Chuck Stahl. And yes, and I decided to work on my own user experience project during these last 10 weeks of my time at K. So, welcome to my presentation. I will be focusing on connecting prospective and former study abroad and away students. K is really unique, where you can study abroad to a different country or study away within the country to different cities. So I was fortunate enough to go to New York during winter of my sophomore year, and then this past fall I went to Rome, Italy. So just a little roadmap for you all. We have the project ideation, so that's thinking about what I could have done during this time with my independent study. Do some research, synthesize it, pull out the major insights, do a generate session, so essentially ideating what the solutions may look like, and then designing and prototyping, my favorite part. And then I will discuss my next steps with the project as well as my future. Okay, so when I started this independent study, I knew I wanted to do a digital product, and I wanted to give back to the K community in some way, but I really had no idea how I wanted to do that. So I thought about some of the issues on campus. A major one is communication. So there's lots of events going on campus with different student organizations, but people just don't really know when or where, and then they miss it or they forget, and that was a big issue. However, I did not focus on this because that can be solved with a Google Calendar, essentially. Next was networking between first years and seniors. So seniors already have completed their majors and minors. They have a good idea of where they want to go next, but first years are absolutely clueless, and that's a good thing. And I was thinking about bridging the gap between first years and seniors, so then they can talk about, well, what majors and minors might work best for some type of career they're interested in, what classes they should take in between, all those things. But this is really solved just with working with your advisors on campus and figuring out what you want to do with the K, with the way K is set up. So we have trimesters, which really makes it easy to explore and learn, and then decide where you want to go on a longer timeline. So the one highlighted in red is study abroad and away resources and preparation. So there's a lot of gaps within this process, and I really wanted to focus on connecting former study abroad students, so those who have finished their trips, and then those who are looking at programs, figuring out where they want to go, what might work best for them. So considering that, we're getting down to the research. So my participants were prospective and former study abroad and away students, and I handed out a survey across campus. They could scan a QR code, pull it up on their phone, and take it. And I asked them questions like, what is challenging about preparing for study abroad? If you already went abroad, was the information adequate? Was it enough? Was it accurate? Do you feel like what you were told is what really was going to happen? What was painless about this process? What was easy? What was enjoyable? What worked? And then, of course, what resources helped you while you were abroad? And then, did you reach out to any students who had already gone on that program? Was that helpful? So now onto the synthesis stage. The negative feedback includes, number one problem, students don't know what to pack. They're just completely unsure about what they might need, and that's pretty understandable considering you're going to be in a new country, new language for 3 months, and you really don't know what life looks like over there. A lot of people were unsure about COVID requirements. They're just unsure about the process in general, and it's really hard to mentally prepare for it. And then, of course, they didn't really know how to connect with former students, and if they did, it wasn't always helpful. And so that's where I started thinking, how can we make that part of this problem better? So some of the positive feedback included guidebooks. Those helped a lot. The downside is they're not always updated, and not every program has them. Further, talking to CIP staff and former students was helpful, but again, it's about reaching that part first. And then, so the CIP events, so that's the Center for International Programs, they're the ones running all the abroad and away programs. Those events that they hosted were really good for getting an unfiltered perspective. And of course, Hornet Passport, which is where you submit your forms, visas, application, etc. That was great because everything is in one place, which is really helpful for students. So research phase 2, I conducted a focus group with the CIP executive director and operations manager, and we just kind of talked about what questions and feedback does this CIP get from students about the process, and then about the resources that they're given out. And then, of course, what are some struggles that the CIP has with communicating to students, and kind of that two-way street of communication. And then how can the CIP facilitate study abroad connections between students, and then also what do they already do to make those connections. So one of the major insights from this focus group was that there's really a hierarchy of needs and questions for K students during the study abroad and away process. So starting at the bottom, everyone's like, where am I going? When? How am I getting there? What am I packing? Next, it's where am I living? What safety precautions will be in place? All about that personal security. And then further down the line, when maybe a couple months in, they've committed to their program, they're wondering who else is going, and then how will I stay connected to those at home? How will those relationships change? And then the top 2 tiers are a little bit more complex because that deals with identity, which is really what is so great about study abroad, is that you are going to have your perspectives changed, and that's why the CIP and K put so much emphasis on the study abroad experience. So these questions start looking like, who am I? Who will I be abroad? How will my sense of being be shattered? And then up top, we have goals. So some people are really engaged in their process, and they know, I want to go to the University of Auckland to do the design program, and etc. Or they want to go and really meet with this one professor so they can do a Fulbright there. So are they able to accomplish those goals, and are they enjoying their time abroad? So some of the major pain points from this focus group was that a lot of students don't know if they can afford this. And then, of course, there's financial aid, but how much does that really cover? A big one is also managing the expectations versus reality. So we all see everyone's Instagram and Facebook posts. It looks like they're having a really great time on abroad, but it's still real life. It's still daily life. You're gonna have to wake up and do your laundry, and it seems like none of that happens when you're abroad, and you just see all the wine tours, etc. So managing that, and that's especially important for the CIP because they are meant to market these programs. So how can we inform students in a way that's a little bit more realistic? And then, of course, the CIP was concerned with the communication, so how and when to share communication. And then, of course, students don't really know what program is best for them, so how can the CIP help them get there it's really hard for students to know and get that information. So the CIP is a great resource. They already have a lot in place to help students. So there's in-person events, abroad fairs, and information sessions that are mandatory. You have SABSA, which is the Study Away and Abroad Board of Student Ambassadors. You have your program and peer advisors and your peer mentors. And then you have some of the hard copy books like the guidebooks, the websites, and of course there's the K-Student Body Facebook page. That's not something the CIP manages, but a lot of students know they can ask questions and get answers there. So if you're going to take anything away from all that, let it be that K students need to know what the program is really like. So grasping that reality aspect. Resources during and before their trip. And then they need streamlined communication with former and prospective study abroad students and having resources in one place. So getting onto the Generate session, understanding what solutions might work. So we ask questions like, how might we connect prospective and former study abroad students and then students with the CIP? How can we better inform the students? And then how can we really prepare them for the changes they are bound to endure, which grasps at that hierarchy of needs and questions. So this looks like a lot, but I'll break it down. This is the potential product features. So we're here to connect prospective and former study abroad students. That's the main focus. So how can we do that? Features such as private chats, public Q&A boards allow people to ask questions both in a general aspect and then in a very personalized way. You have program contacts and lists, so seeing every alumni and every person who has gone on that program and being able to ask them what they thought of it, what their experiences were like. And then program pages, which is like the Hornet Passport that already exists, which just has all the information. So one of the things the CIP asked me to do after the focus group was conduct a competitive analysis, and they really wanted to know what exists already that could be implemented. So Microsoft Teams is familiar to K students, but it's really meant more for like online classes and turning in assignments and stuff. So it's not super great with like connecting students one-on-one. It does have private chat. It does have boards, but a lot of K students just don't check it, and I feel like it's starting to be phased out now that we're becoming more in person. There is Facebook, but not everyone has one, even though it is great for sharing videos and images. And then I dug a little deeper. So HiveBright and its alternative software, Circle, are both really great community engagement sharing sites that feature private chats, even a trip planner, and it does have that small group setting. And then you can even send mass updates, have calendars. So there's a lot of features that would work for the CIP, but they're quite costly. So now getting to my favorite part, the design and prototype. So here we have an example of what one of the solutions could be, which is incorporating all those elements I just talked about. So if you first open the app, you have your news feed. This is something you could scroll on and see what people are posting. Now let's say if you wanted to save one of these posts, you could just click on one of the ribbons here and it's saved. So let's check out the user profile. So I'm acting as Andrea York. She is a sophomore committed to the Madrid, Spain program. She has her bio made out. She can edit it if she'd like. She can share her profile to other students. And you can see the posts that she has already made. And now if you're curious to where that saved post went, it is right here. So then you can see all the things that you really need in an organized manner. So let's say Andrea is curious about Spain. She wants to see who else has been there from K to get their experiences. here's a list, this is alphabetized by last name, of every student who has gone abroad at K. So you have people going to Rome, going to London, and these are also prospective students, so they can connect with each other too. So Charlie's going to Spain. Let's see what he has to say. So he's a senior, he probably just got back from abroad, and he already made a post about his entire Spain trip. So now Andrea can read that, and if she has questions about that, she can chat him later. So going back, there's also a map view. So this shows students across the board on the globe where other students are, and if she wanted to see who was in Cáceres, Spain, so this is that general area, she can click on it and see Charlie there. So going back to if she wanted to reach out to Charlie, she could go to her private chats, and you can see she's already started a conversation. He's telling her that we lived in a small community, and this is where those personal connections and like real raw experiences can be shared. Going down here, this is the program information. So as you can see, she's committed to the Spain program, but if she wanted to change that, she could just by filtering out to a different program. But here you have the general program information. You can see all the events listed for that program, Q&A boards, and even identity groups. So this is something the CIP and I discussed about representation. So a lot of people are thinking, well, I don't really know if this is for me. Can I really exist in this country? Will I feel safe? Will I feel seen? So you can already form some identity groups at K to help support you while you're abroad, and just have another support system and resource while you're out there. You can also see former students, and then of course your program advisors and mentors. So these are the CIP staff and volunteer students that are willing to help people throughout the process. All right, so I designed everything that you saw there except for the orange navigation bar with the black icons. The icons were from FreePick. So, next steps. After you prototype something, you test it to see whether it actually works for the people who are going to be using it. So that is something I would like to do. And then with that, you would synthesize the feedback. So you're listening to your users and then learning from them to improve the design. And the great thing about user experience design is that it is iterative, it never really ends. You can always keep learning from your users, and you can always keep making your products better. All right, so that is all for this user experience project in terms of connecting prospective and former study abroad and away students. I will now open it up to any questions or comments.
Is it your intention then, Beth, to take this concept, this digital concept, and be able to apply it in any setting where people have issues communicating on a given level, kind of like how Teams operates? Is that?
Yeah, so I think when I started this project, I was really gearing it towards the CIP and K students. But this is for sure something that could be used for other study abroad programs at other colleges.
Oh, you mean this model, this specific model?
Yeah, that's what I designed it in mind for, but of course this could be translated to other populations.
Would you talk a little bit more about, I'm so fascinated by the psychology and the user experience concept. So you're using psychology and understanding of people in order to then be able to design a digital program that connects them?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so it's really about learning from the people you're about to design for and ensuring that what you're about to design actually meets their needs. So it does take psychology, it takes empathy, understanding a person, it takes research, analyzing data analytics, putting it in an affinity map and seeing what the major pain points are for a person, and then thinking about how can we turn that, how can we make solutions for that, and then implementing it in some product. So it doesn't have to be digital. I just decided to focus on that because I really enjoy user interface stuff. It can be, like I said, it can be physical products as well.
Did Kay implement the program then that you've designed? Is that what we were seeing?
This was, this was just like a project, and Kay and the CIP were like really good, like a jumping board for me to like delve into this project. So I could potentially, I could potentially build this out. I do have connections with coders who are willing to actually create this app. It just comes down to cost and making that happen. And of course, we would have to test this a lot more before getting to that step.
And how do you feel about it when you look at your own program that you went to in Rome, when you applied it to this? What did you feel about Rome vis-a-vis what was missing or helpful?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think Rome wasn't my first choice.
Right.
And of course there was middle of the pandemic, so there was a lot of limitations. But my entire program did not know where we would be living, who we would be living with, and like the neighborhood until we got there, like literally on site. So I think that was stressful for a lot of people, and I'm a pretty particular person that likes to know things ahead of time. So that was a big pain point for me that I was able to like kind of draw from, but then also see it in other people that went on my program as well as other programs. Yeah.
Do you think the time between your immediate arrival back and now has modified your view of the program?
Oh yeah. I was discussing with the executive director, Margaret of the CIP, how it takes time to process those experiences. And when I first came back, I was like a little bit upset about how it happened. But now that I've had space and time, I'm a lot more appreciative of my experience, and I'm realizing how much I learned, even though it may not have been the most enjoyable or expected experience while I was there.
Do you think that's something that goes into the hopper when you're talking with prospectives now? If students were to reach out to you, will you put your name in there as an alum that people can...
Yeah. So I actually, I had one student come up to me. She said, I'm on the track to go to Rome, so the program I did, but I still have this opportunity to go to France. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And I was like, okay, prefacing this with I'm a particular person. What I didn't like may not be what you don't like. And I just told her about my experiences, and she was like, yeah, I don't know if it would be the best program for me. And so now she's in France instead, and it seems like she's having a really great time. And that was something like I reached out to her about saying like, hey, I just got back from there, like I'm happy to talk with you about it. And so we had that conversation. But that needs to be facilitated. That needs to be an easier connection to make, which is what this app is all about. And of course, as I mentioned, there's peer mentors. So I actually signed up for a peer mentor, not realizing it wasn't for graduating students. So I'm a peer mentor for the New York Arts program because I love that program. It's why I'm here today. And so yeah, there's lots of ways that I still continue to engage with the CIP.
What about cost? What would be the cost associated with it for people who would want to use this?
That's a really, I really don't know, because I am not at that stage of developing apps yet. I would have to talk to the person that I talked to about building out an app I designed with the New York Arts program. But that's really not in my range. Great question, though.
What part of this could you have used the most on your trip?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me it would have been maybe talking to former students, because then I would have known more about what it was really like at this school. But the thing is, like, I was so limited. Like, Rome was the only option, and I was like, I'd rather go abroad than not. So I guess thinking back to when I was more of a prospective student, I was first set on going to Hungary for their psychology program. But then I heard through the grapevine that the program was really deteriorating. There was cockroaches in the apartments, etc. So really, like, just having those conversations is really what guided me. And that's when I discovered the University of Auckland New Zealand program, and they had design. But of course that was canceled with the pandemic. So I was really limited and decided to go to Rome rather than not. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Well, just since Rome wasn't your first choice, but it was your choice, looking back on it, how would you comment on the experience? Not based on your creator of user experience design, but personally you. How was Rome even though it wasn't your first choice?
So, Rome was a big adjustment, and it was that in terms of like infrastructure and then like living scenarios. The food was great, but it was just like another like, all right, here you are placing yourself in a really challenging position and like learning how to do things all over again in a different way. So it was tough, but I learned a lot, and I don't know. I really can't complain about it. So
if you had to take your being a user experience person and pack up and go to a foreign country, would you avoid that, or would that be something that you got to consider something you can do when you go in there?
you're talking about avoiding challenge?
No, well,
Like
particular
avoiding-
challenge of maybe spending a few months in a foreign country.
Would I do it again?
Would you do it again?
Yeah. Why not? I mean, I'd love to. I don't really want to go abroad for a master's degree, but I've been thinking about it. So I was on the Fulbright track. I was a semifinalist to go to Amsterdam at the University of Delft, Technology University of Delft. But I decided it was not the right time for me to do that. So maybe in the future. I think going to New Zealand would be awesome, studying at the University of Auckland, surfing on the weekends. But we'll see. It's just Saturday, June 11th right now, so yeah. Did you have a question, Professor Stahl?
Yes, have you had a chance to share your prototype with the CIP yet, or is that coming later?
I have not. Actually, I thought they might be here today, but it's okay. So no, I have not. I think I definitely will probably send them this presentation because it's being recorded and get some feedback from them. Yeah, that would be a part of my next steps, actually great segue, which is the last one, improving personal projects. So just continuing to look back on the research, doing more research, and then keep building out the prototypes. Yeah. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. All right, so next steps, I have gotten the web services internship at K. That will start in July, and I'll be working with the library doing usability testing, etc. In the meantime, over the summer, I'm applying to UX design jobs across the country, and I have my own company, Beth Schulman Studios, and that's how I can legally do freelance design. And yeah, I actually, one of the coding connections I have, he reached out to me saying, you're a user experience designer, I'd love to like build something with you. And I'm like, okay, for sure. I have this project that I'm working on right now, but I also have one that I completed in New York at the New York Arts Program, and that was the renal friendly creating solutions for dialysis patients. And it turns out that his father is actually a dialysis patient, so it hits home to both of us. My mom was a social worker at DaVita Dialysis, so I've always been around patients, and my parents are in healthcare, so that hits home to me. So yeah, just continuing to improve projects and getting a job. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. They were great questions. I am officially done with undergrad.